see. All right. Thank you, Allison, for doing this. Thank you, Malvern Books. I walked in here about 4:30 this afternoon and immediately felt at home and immediately bought 3 books I knew I wanted very much and said, these books are on display here. This is my kind of place. This book opens in East Texas in 2003, and I'm going to read 3 short passages from it. FM 104 is this chapter title. Coyotes, weasels, green flies, crows. The animals heard it first. Along the weedy edge of Route 20, a turkey buzzard quit the possum she'd lucked into and took cover in a stand of pines. The wild pig under Cecil Dawson's oak tree snorted twice and froze. To us, it came from out of nowhere. 2 blasts and the roar of a crashing train that rumbled far too long. Our windows rattled. Our floorboards quivered. Our breakfasts trembled on their tables. We thought terror. We thought bombs. We thought of our loved ones. A few of us thought to scream. Those of us who ran outside, the ground beneath us shaking still, saw wobbling plumes of smoke in a Texas postcard sky. Some saw 3 trails, some claim 1. No one saw the fireballs since they streaked west of here. Jimmy Hubble counted the seconds like the time between lightning and thunder, 1001, 1002, 1030. Over the trees of his south pasture, pieces of something fell from the sky. Grover Sharkey heard a whizzing sound, like a bullet flying past. Carter Bostic heard a thud on her roof, then another, then 2 more. We turned on our televisions. Columbia's lost, the news anchor said. Not lost, we said, it's here. Cable on a hay bale, computer in a tree, spacesuit in a briar patch, toilet by a school. Beside Junior Pierce's mailbox lay a shoeless foot, missing 1 big toe. Didn't anything burn up? On the shoulder of Farm to Market 104, Lila McFarland reached for a square of silver metal, big as a turkey platter, charred on just one side. The heat it gave off reddened her palm. She made a hot pad out of 2 old towels and laid it in her trunk. Don't touch anything, the news anchor said. Chemicals, danger. NASA doesn't know. Arthur Kenny smelled something in the air, but he could not describe it. Not fuel, not smoke, nor burning flesh. Not the East Texas perfumes he knew. Creosote, fertilizer, pulpwood, pines. His dog held something in her mouth. Arthur's legs went weak. Here, Dingo, bring it here. She circled, teased, and dropped it on his shoe. A black piece of pipe, narrow as a woman's finger. Good girl, he said, and chained her to a tree. What could we do? The stuff was everywhere, light as paper, heavy as brick. We set up roadblocks where it littered our highways. Our children played at searching. For what? A nose cone, a fuel cell, an instrument panel. Coyotes, weasels, green flies, crows. For weeks we walked with our heads down, watching where we walked. So the book is the story of a town, a fictional town in East Texas, before, during, and after the Columbia shuttle disaster. If you live in Texas, you may not know that outside of Texas, we didn't hear that much about it. And I discovered in 2005, I think, that I knew very little about what had actually happened down here. The disaster happened 6 weeks before the Iraq War, and the national reporters who were down here were within about 2 weeks called back to cover the run-up to the war. So I think of it as the disaster that fell between the two horrific pillars of 9/11 and the Iraq War. I'm going to read another section about a little boy. He's a prescient boy. He's highly intuitive. His father and mother are separating, and his father's about to move from the fictional small town of Kaiser to the big city of Houston. And all of this is happening As I said before, during and after, and this particular section happens not long after, about a month after the disaster. Here's something to remember, his father said. They were in the garage where his grandfather kept a shop. In the corner, a stack of moving boxes stood higher than Frankie's head. His mother was in the kitchen making macaroni and cheese. She'd been fixing his favorites all week. Last night it was spaghetti and meatballs, ice cream for dessert. You wear these thumb pads, you hear me? Or else you wear the glove. His father had been in the garage every day this week when Frankie got home from 5th grade. Normally he would be working at the tree service or at the apartment in town where he was staying. Today he had given Frankie a sharpening stone, a glove, and a little bag of thumb pads. He was teaching him to sharpen a knife. Show me the duct tape thing, Frankie said. Okay, but the pads are easier. His father took the boy's thumb in his hand and wrapped it with the tape, put the sticky side out, then wrapped 4 or 5 layers the regular way. You don't get a sticky thumb that way. His father produced a tiny can and dribbled oil onto the sharpening stone. This keeps the blade cool. Frankie watched his father draw the blade across the stone. He stood very still, like a deer, listening. This morning he'd heard the March rain move over the trees, its wall of sound, then whoosh and the brattle of wet leaves, beech and ash, locust and oak, from here to the Parker's place, where he'd found the astronaut last month. So much he has heard. The bark as it sloughs off a trunk, the twitter of one lonely leaf, the quiet tears of his mother in her room at night, the crickets, the bullfrogs, the flies, the ants. The thump of an astronaut's heart falling to the ground. He has heard what he has not wanted. He has heard his brain in disbelief, the thump of his own bewildered heart. I have to leave Sunday, his father said. Next Sunday. This Sunday, he said. And there's something I want you to remember. The thumb pads, Frankie said, I won't forget. I want you to remember, his father said, that I don't have a choice. The boy looked at the stack of boxes. They were labeled, tools, books, miscellaneous, an ordered retreat. Now you try, his father said. Bring the blade toward you at an angle like this, 10 or 20 degrees. Frankie guessed at 20 degrees and drew the knife slowly across the stone. He has never told anyone. He heard the shuttle come apart. You want to watch how you draw the blade, his father said. It makes a difference. That's more than 20 degrees. Frankie tried again. The blade made a rasping noise. Good, his father said. That's good. Yesterday, his father had shown him how to gut a fish. The day before, they tied a fly, something to learn every day, like cramming for a test. I heard a joke at school today. Want to hear it? Frankie said. Pull the blade more slowly. A little kid went up to his grandpa and said, Grandpa, can you make a sound like a frog? When the grandpa asked why, the kid said, because Daddy says when you croak, we're all going to Disneyland. That's sick, his father said. Yeah, Frankie said, it's funny. I could tell you another. In their old house, from his bedroom, he had heard them in the kitchen. A fist on the table, the slam of a cabinet, a crash of metal into the sink. Is it sick, his father said. No. What did the 0 say to the 8? I don't know, what? Nice belt. I like that, his father said. It's not as funny. They heard his mother calling the way she did when they all lived in their house. 5 minutes, she said, supper in 5 minutes. His father turned to wipe a spot of oil off the table. Frankie drew the blade once more across the stone, slowly, just as his father had shown him. If he had not kept secret what he had heard, the roar that frightened them all, his father would stay. He touched the smooth side of the blade to his thumb. So Allison gave us a theme, and the theme was silver linings. On my particular book, I didn't have a lot of that. So, but I do have one very, very short passage, and I'll read one page. There are many characters in the book. There are no real astronauts, and there aren't really very many astronauts except the ones who arrived to help clean up the mess. But there is one astronaut in the air. This is at the window. Sliver of moon, the clouds are parting. Michael Kirkland wraps his legs around the pilot's seat of the craft that carries him weightless through the heavens. He has floated forward, close as he can, to his window in the sky. Alone at the end of his workday, and what he sees, oh, what he sees, he drinks like a drug. 10 minutes to cross America. California lights, Mojave dark, neon Las Vegas. There are the Rockies, there are the plains. Pinch me, oh Lord, is tonight more splendid than last? Phoenix, Albuquerque, Amarillo, Shawnee, I-40, a serpent's lighted tail. There is Tulsa, where high school was. There is Owasso, the place of his birth, so far below, on gravity's sphere, all that he has ever loved. A mother, a girlfriend, old friends, and a house. The crew in Houston, that clan of big dreamers. What luck, this life of his. Oh, speck of earth, how fast you pass. Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, New York, zip the lights of Boston, zip the coast of Maine. They're gone. A check of the watch, his life a clock up here. 1 more minute at the window. Sweet night. Here comes London, here comes Spain. Lord, I am a fortunate man. Sea to shining sea, I am. Thank you.